Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Dr. Leadership Lounge. Today, I'm very blessed to have Mr. Toby Stansell, CEO of the Cargo Agency, author of the great book, The Winding Road to Excellence, motivational speaker, executive coach, longtime innovator about driving culture. Toby, welcome to the show. So blessed to have you today. How are you doing?
Hey, Brent, thanks for having me. Appreciate you even kind of finding out about me and about the book. Certainly grateful to have this opportunity to share a few things with your audience.
Yeah, it's great. I'll tell you, you have spoken at a number of events that some of my coworkers had heard you
Right.
speak. And not only one said you got to reach out to this gentleman and see, first of all, if I could learn a little something from you, but get the audience engaged, but two in like a 2-week period. So you were highly recommended, and I just feel really, really fortunate for you coming on. How I kind of jump into these things is, first of all, tell us kind of your road of what you're doing today. I know you're CEO of the Cargo Agency. I think that came around in 2021. You've done lots of things. You've traveled the world, but tell us a little bit about your current role as the CEO, and then we'll just kind of go through your life a little bit, and we'll start finding those nuggets that you can share with the audience.
Yeah, and Brent, this is a really unique appointment for me being CEO of an ad agency. When I was president of a company called Ubi, which is the uniform provider for, at least when I was there, Chick-fil-A and SkyWest Airlines and Food Line grocery stores, and I think ultimately they did all of Krispy Kreme's uniforms, but we were in a really old 100-plus-year-old building in downtown Greenville called the Old Cotton Warehouse, because it really was an old cotton warehouse.
Literally. Yeah.
And we occupied the entire top floor, and there were about 3 or 4 suites downstairs, fairly large, and so a company named Cargo, this was 2006 or 7, a company named Cargo moved into one of the suites, and we just kind of naturally, we'd see each other, Bill, and met each other. So I met there were 4 owners at the time, and I met them, and we kind of exchanged work for each other. I think we maybe did some hats and shirts for them maybe, and they maybe helped develop our first website. It's so long ago I really can't remember, but one of their owners, especially a gentleman named Scott Brand, he and I just kind of hit it off. We liked each other. We went to lunch occasionally, but then I left there in 2010 and went and ran another business in Greenville, an information technology business. But Scott, he would just call me from time to time and, just want to pick my brain about a business challenge or a business opportunity that Cargo was facing. And I'd kind of give him some free consulting
Your
advice.
2 cents for no sense. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so, so we stayed in touch. Well, the last time they began, 2 of the owners ultimately bought out 2 of the other owners, so the business became owned by 2 gentlemen, Casey Murphy and Scott Brand. And so in late 2020, kind of after COVID had showed up in March of 2020, these guys gave me a call in September, and they said, we hadn't seen you in a while. Would you mind if what if we just took you to dinner? I said, that's fine. So they invited me to a really nice restaurant, Hall's Chop House in Greenville. And I still remember it was September the 28th. I had no idea what the agenda was, just to catch up. We'd see each other every 2 or 3 years. So we go to dinner. And we hadn't been at dinner 20 minutes, and Scott looks up, and this funny look in his face, and he said, we got a proposition for you. I said, what's that? He said, we want you to come be CEO of Cargo. And I said, guys, I'm honored, humbled and intrigued, but I'm not really interested. I said, this is going to sound crass, but I said, I don't even like marketing. I don't even believe it works.
I'm not buying what you're selling.
Yeah. So, and the truth, I said, I've been in sales most of my life, and sales is easy to measure. It's either results or excuses. And so I said, I appreciate it. But they wouldn't let up. And over a few weeks, it became clear that
they were grinding you down. Yeah, they were grinding you down.
They did. They ground me down. But something happened where I was a partner at Cherry Becker. I knew you had to withdraw from the partnership at a certain age. That's just typical of CPA firms.
Yep.
And I had really started their digital advisory service line back in 2017. But Sherry Beckert made a decision that they really, instead of letting partners stay around 4, 5, or 6 years, that they passed a resolution to their partnership agreement that they really wanted the partners to move on after they became no longer partners. And so I called these guys back. I said, all right, y'all may be getting more than you bargained for, but I said, I really am not a marketer, but I do understand the 4 industries that you sell to: financial services, transportation, equipment, technology, and industrial. I said, I've spent most of my career selling technology into those spaces.
Around those spaces, yeah.
So I may not understand all the marketing nuances, but I certainly have a good feel for your customer base. And I said, just write me a 3-year no-cut contract unless I, go on a killing spree.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can't fire me, and that's what started it, and that's what how it worked out. And it's been a real, we've had our ups and downs. I'll be honest about that, and I won't get into all the details, but man, we're really on an upswing right now.
That's
We've really
awesome.
got the team we need. Our business is growing significantly, and it's like most businesses that I've taken over, Brent. On the surface, sometimes they look great, but when you begin to look at kind of the underpinnings or the foundation of the business, you realize they got a customer concentration or revenue concentration issue, or they don't have the leaders they need to grow, or they don't have a repeatable process model that you can use to scale.
Yep.
And so most businesses, you have to take a dip before you can hit the incline.
Yeah.
And this one's been just like that.
Every baby has some freckles. There's always challenges,
Right.
and it is no different. And I've been with the same company for 28 years. I talk about it a lot on the show, but and we're a technology based, and we're in a lot of the verticals you're in as well. And just you think after 28 years you'd have it right, and the thing that's constant is change. So what you had was right. Now it's not, and you have to pivot and tack the ship and all sorts of things. But what a great story. It's nice that those connections, and I talk about relationships a lot. That relationship ended up paying dividends to both parties, just because it started with a hello at the elevator one day, I'm sure, and the rest is history.
No, that's right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
So a very entrepreneurial spirit. You've led lots of different organizations and things. Where do you think that started from? What was your early life like? Were parents impactful on this? Were you surrounded by business people young? Tell us a little bit about your early years.
Well, I tell everybody, you ought to read the book. The book's a bunch of stories. It's a collection of stories. I teach a class for Clemson University's mini MBA program called Narrative Leadership.
Yep.
Which is leadership by telling stories. Listen, facts and figures tell, but stories sell.
It's funny you bring that up. I don't want to interrupt you, but so this week's podcast that drops tomorrow is actually called "Be a Storyteller," and it's about the cycle.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. We did not pre-plan this, everybody. It'll be, by the time this conversation comes out, it'll have been a couple weeks ago that conversation came out. But it's about the psychology of how to be successful in a lot of things in life. You have to possess the skills to tell a number of different stories, trust stories and excitement and inspirational stories, etc. So didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead. The book is great, by the way, everybody.
And that really takes me a little bit different direction. There's a part of narrative leadership is a philosophy called sense making and sense giving. And people say, what is that? But we live in such a dynamic, fast-paced world, culturally, economically, socially, civically, competitively today, that what worked yesterday is marginally effective today and is bankrupt tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, the stories help people grasp paradigm shifts. In other words, if people can't get an idea, wow, listen, I know this market looks lucrative, but tomorrow it's not going to be lucrative. There's something new just picking its head over the horizon. And I always say the best leaders can see the things that are sticking their head over the horizon before it's obvious to the naked eye or the casual observer, but they also have the discernment, the wisdom, the judgment to be able to recognize the difference between fads and trends.
Yep,
Fads will take your wallet,
but
trends will make you some money.
Yep, they'll stuff the wallet.
That's just reality. So, you got to be, the world today rewards physical and mental agility almost as much as it rewards experience. because experience today erodes into a liability faster than ever before. Every day you have to ask yourself, is this experience still viable? Is it still relevant? Is it still optimal? How much of that do I carry forward because it will still be effective today?
Still carry water today.
Yeah, if you're not willing to kind of burn the mental calories and give that mental test every day, you're going to end up using things. This worked 4 years ago. I know this works. Yeah, it's not that it didn't work, and it's not the things that you're wrong about that'll bring you down. It's the things that you were right about at one point in time, but they're not right today, and you've not really paid attention to how things have changed, and you've gotten dated, and you've become an also-ran, and you just have to really guard against that.
It's a terrible, dirty statement of this is how we've always done it. That's why we're doing it. This is how we always done it. And I love the also ran, in the horse race of analogies there. There's people that, some of those horses get shot because of the broken leg out of the gate.
You're right. But, your original question was what happened in the early stages?
Yeah, how'd you get here? What inspired you?
Well, listen, everybody ought to read the book, but if you don't have the patience to read the book, you ought to. I've got a 1,015-word kind of explanation in Amazon's Author Central, and it's a comical story. My dad.
It's a bunch of one-liners, which I love. I love it.
Well, thank you. My dad, he's still alive. He's 92. He's got dementia pretty badly, which is sad. But he was really smart. Graduated from Clemson University in 3 years in 1952. And he always brags. He says, "I had."
Was it a 2-year college then, or was it a 4-year college? I'm just teasing.
It was a 4-year college. It was all male. It was Clemson A&M, Clemson Agriculture and Military then.
Yeah, I was just teasing. Took him 3 years to get through a 2-year college. I was trying to be funny.
3 years. Yeah, you're right. He went through the summers, so
that's
he could
good.
Get through. I think he just wanted to get married to my mom, and
that's how it was back then. You bet.
Yeah, so he got through. They got married. He took a job with the Atomic Energy Commission in Oak Ridge, Tennessee at the K-25 plant, which is the plant that, even though that was 7 years after the end of World War II, that was the plant that separated the two types of uranium, U-235 and U-238, to get the uranium with the right isotopes to make one of the two atomic bombs used to bring the curtain down on World War II.
Wow.
But it was still very much in the Cold War. So, my dad was not an entrepreneur. He was a maintenance supervisor at that plant, but it was just like being in the military. I had to wear 2 dog tags to school every day, just like you were an enlisted military person. But my dad was a big fisherman, and my uncles were all big fishermen. And how all this got started, this entrepreneurial thing, my dad broke about the time I was 13 or 14, he broke a fishing rod. He broke a guide off of a fishing rod.
Mm-hmm.
And I had seen him make these today you'd call them crappy jigs, but back then we called them hattie calls. And he had some nylon thread and some molds that he could pour these lead heads with hooks in them. And so anyway, Pop said, "Well, that rod's no good." And I thought, I think I can fix that rod. And so I took nylon thread and made me kind of a rod jig out of some old 1x4 wooden parts. And I took a rheostat pedal from one of my mom's old sewing machines and hooked it up to a 25 RPM motor, and I could control the speed with my foot. And I fixed that rod and gave it back to my dad. And so anytime people learn, hey, you break a rod, take it to Toby. I learned how to put ferrules in them and glue them back together. And so I did that for years. And then finally one day I just said, man, I wonder if I could make my own line of fishing rods. And Brent, when I was late teens, early 20s, I was making fishing rods for people all over the country.
Wow.
And I look back today at Brent at some of those rods, and I'm saying, how did I do that? What? Sometimes I think it just goes to show one of my principles in life is most of us can do twice what we think we can do qualitatively and quantitatively. We're just self-limiting. So that was the start of it. And then when I was in college, I loved stereos. I loved really good music and good sound. And I went to see Clemson play Alabama in 1975. I think we got beat 56-0. Ugh. And but I went in a really high-end audio store in Birmingham called Audition, and I did and got to be $250,000 a year business that I didn't do any, just word of mouth. And I think it
That's
instilled
incredible.
in me. Yeah, I think it instilled in me that anytime you can combine passion with proficiency, and it's something that people will write a check for, that's the definition of a business.
I agree.
And it just started there, and that's just been kind of my pathway. And Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic Airways, Virgin Records,
Yep.
He's got, of course, whatever his space company is. He always said, look, if somebody offers you a great opportunity and you don't know how to do it, say yes and figure it out as you go along. And people say, well, that's fake it till you make it. And I say, no, that's make it till you make it. But just don't say no because don't say no because you're afraid. And so for me, I've said yes to a lot of things I truly was not qualified to do, but I knew there were resources out there that could help me figure it out. And so it really opened up the world in a big way to me.
That's a great tie-in, to how you became successful. And you mentioned a couple of things. I always say our biggest limitation is the 6 inches between our ears, right? Self-doubt,
Right.
Those types of things really are impactful on all of us. And self-belief is critical, as is ongoing self-improvement, et cetera. In my role in leadership throughout my business career, I've been kind of a fixer and a mender from a corporate standpoint. And there were a lot of things I looked at and go, I have no idea how that works yet, but I know I can surround myself with resources and the good people and those types of things, and try to inspire and lead people out of problematic situations. So, man,
Right.
But the fishing rods that early, that's a great story. So you call them crappies, we call them crappies up where I'm from, and I'm
Right.
and a paper mouth.
right.
They've
That's
also
right.
in Minnesota they call them paper mouths, because you pull on that hook too hard, man, you're going to lose every single one of them. That's awesome.
Well, it's clear to me you know what you're talking about, because all that's exactly right. That's perfectly accurate.
Well, so I grew up. My dad was a private business owner. He and his brothers, and so I grew up minimum wage with the worst job on the docket every single day to prove a point to his workers. But he had a place in southern Minnesota when we were growing up, and we'd go up there and do a lot of fishing and jigging and those types of things. So I was going down memory lane with you when you were talking about your dad being a fisherman and all those things. My dad, I loved him. One of the most inspirational people in my life. Did his eulogy when he passed. Just a hero to me, as is my mother too. World War II parents too. But he was a terrible fisherman. he couldn't catch a cold if he was sneezed on, if it was in a boat. And but man, he loved doing it. Right? He was out there every day trying. And then I have a father-in-law today that is a fish whisperer. So I've had two extremes in my life. That's great. Now, so your dad was inspirational to you. Were there any other people that early on in your life were really inspiring to, you've got a lot of vigor. You can feel it in your speaking voice and all the successes you've had, and results or excuses, is a great statement too, being in the sales side of the arena. Anybody else real inspirational to you? Were there teachers or coaches or anything in life that really made an impact to you?
Yeah, early on, I'd say most of the people, I always say I credit kind of 8 people with being kind of central to me kind of becoming the person I am today. But a lot of those are really started in my career. But if you think about the early stage, both my mom and dad, I call both of them out. I call both of them out in the book. My dad he just had kind of a way with one-liners that he would say things, just statements it'd stick with you the rest of your life. He told me one time, he said, Toby, you're a Stansell, so you're going to be aggressive, so you're going to make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I just ask 2 things. Number one, when you make a mistake, you own up to it. Say, it's my fault, blame me. Somebody didn't hold a gun to my head. It's not because my mom spanked me too hard when I was 12. It's a choice I made, and hey, it's my choice. And the second thing is, he said, listen, have enough sense about you. You don't have to make the same mistake twice.
That's great advice.
Yeah. So he was good. He told me one of the things that, I repeat this still to this day, when we're all a product of how we were raised or brought up, or
Absolutely.
the experiences we've had. And we say, we make these kind of preconceived notions. I don't like those kind of people. I don't like that kind of food. I don't like that kind of place. I don't like that kind of activity. And when we do that, and it's not something that's bad for us. It's not illegal or more unethical. We basically slow our pace of learning because we've stopped. We basically stopped at the door. We've given the Heisman to external stimuli and external experiences that could enrich our lives. And my dad had one-liner that more than anything else. He said, Toby, he said, an option unconsidered was never really an option.
That's so true.
And it is powerful, and it's made me not just take things that, you say don't judge a book by its cover. Just don't look at things based on surface value. You never know what can materialize out of a relationship or a person or a conversation. So my mom and dad, my mom is really tough. She's a very much, but the greatest lesson she ever taught me, she said, we all think sometimes we're at a disadvantage with other people. They've got more money, more degrees, they got more assets or resources. She said, I've learned that most people have issues and problems that are just nobody knows about. And she said, if you took 20 people in a group and you had them write their worst problem that nobody else knew about on a piece of paper, then you crumbled up that piece of paper and you threw all 20 into a pile and you mixed them up good, and then have all 20 people go pick up somebody else's piece of paper that had their problem on it. More times than not, you'd want your own problem back.
Yeah.
And, so I just say kind of these indelible lessons that my parents taught me. And then I won't say I did play ball, but not coaches, but I had a professor in college. His name was Dr. Beverly N. Scarden, and he went by Ben. But he survived in World War II. I think it was called the Chinese Death March. He was one of the only. He lived to be 100. He just died a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And
he just, I didn't study very hard. I probably didn't take advantage of the.
Yeah, it was the Bataan. It was the Bataan Death March. Yeah, down.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. He survived that. He was a survivor of that. And,
wow.
But he just inspired me. When I would go to sign up for a new semester's class, and he taught language and English and public speaking, I would just look for a class that he taught. I had him 5 times while I was in college.
That's impactful then. Yeah.
It is. He just, I don't know, he just inspired me that, man, you can do more than you think you can. And then I say there are 7 men. It's a kind of, and it's a different day today. Today that'd probably be smattered about with plenty of women, but
sure.
But 7 men, kind of 2 pastors, Johnny Lenning, who's with the Billy Graham Association, Dr. Ernest Carswell, my dad and Susan's dad. Susan's dad, I'm telling you didn't fool around with him. He's been dead since 1988. That's Susan's my wife.
Yeah.
But I mean, buddy, he told it like it was. It wasn't. I mean, there wasn't any mincing any words with Susan's dad. And then 3 men I either worked with. One was a customer, and 2 were bosses: Hunter Park, Frank Bellavie, and Dick Holdridge, and they're all called out in the book. But if people ask me to categorize or kind of put a theme around all that, these men wouldn't accept mediocrity. They wouldn't accept me doing less than what they knew I could do. And they pushed me to do what I could do, but I didn't have the will or the fortitude or the self-discipline to do myself at early stages in my career. And I think it made all the difference in where I am today.
Those are real impactful. Leaders and coaches are all about bringing more out of people than they believe they have in themselves. I've always said that, so I'm really buying in on what you're saying there. And it sounded like your father and your father-in-law, that there's a reason they call that the greatest generation. They
That's
faced
right.
hardships. My mother's still alive. She's 94 and a Spitfire, smart as a whip, and still just super healthy. Walks, every day, just brain and everything's working great. I lost my father to Alzheimer's and dementia, but she'd say things like the world isn't for sissies, and
right.
It's just life is hard. Get used to it. And you said that you had mentioned something to your mom about those 20 people putting problems in, that people have more, people have greater things, bigger house, more money. You think life is perfect from the outside looking in, but she always says, she gets tied up on these entitled feeling people these days. And she would say to me, even growing up when I was thinking I was special or big, you aren't special. You're special to me, But you aren't special to anybody else in this world. You're just carbon and atoms like everybody else. And you have to leave a legacy based on you make decisions and decisions make you. And you have to lead a good quality life, and you have to be strong in your faith, and you have to be a good friend, and you have to be harder working. And then having a father that was a business owner, and they were all World War II survivors. My dad and his twin brother were in the Navy, and then their older brother was a bomber pilot that was actually shot down bombing the southern tips of the Japanese mainlands right before they were going in. He made it home and actually crash landed in Soviet Union and was held in an internment camp, had surgeries on his foot and shoulder, got his entire crew out through the Afghanistan underground. I mean, it's an unbelievable story.
Wow.
And then I had neighbors that were Battle of the Bulge survivors, and the Bataan Death March, though, boy, that's a special type of resiliency right there, because no food, no water, march for miles in heat and malaria based. And I was a military history major in college.
Oh, wow.
So I know that story well. And those of the listeners that aren't familiar with it, you want to understand hardship, just go look up Bataan Death March. It's Bataan Death March. Wow. And you will learn what resiliency really is about. So you had all sorts of good people around you, it sounds like, through your developmental years and your collegiate years, then also your business years. How did you lead into writing a book? What was the road you traveled to get to where you're like, you know what, I need to share this stuff? How did that come about?
Well, it didn't. That's the funny. This may be the funniest story of all. I'm gonna tell you something. Never intended to write a book. Never intended to share any of this with anybody. And this is in the book. This is absolutely true. I got my first smartphone in 2002, and it was a Palm Trio 300. It was silver.
I had the same phone.
Did you really?
Yeah, I really did. It was my first one. It had the pencil thing that popped out of it, right?
That's exactly right, out of one corner.
Exactly. I had the exact same one.
Well, listen, yours may not have done this, but every now and then the hinge spring would break and the top would fly off at Mach 2, about decapitate anybody within 50 feet. And people, Brent, you get this. It's obvious by me talking to you, but back then, today, we take it for granted that what you do on your phone syncs to your computer or to Outlook or to Google, and you can look.
It's all just automatic. The magic happens. That's right.
Yeah, but that until the first smartphones, the phone was a phone and the computer was a computer. Well, I got to looking at we didn't even know what an app was. We called it an application, but you got to looking at the things you could do on the phone, and there was a little application called Notes. Well, every time I learned kind of a lesson in business or in life, and most of them were hard lessons, that's why the subtitle of the book is Leadership Lessons Learned from Life's Potholes.
Potholes, yeah.
We learn a lot more from failures than we do from success, because if we're successful, we're probably going to do it the same way next time.
Yep.
And if we fail, the thing that sears our brain is, I'm not doing that again.
That's right. Only touched the stove once. That's right.
Yeah, I only touched the stove once. So I started writing down these one-liners, like, real one of them, and some of them were secondhand. People shared with Alan Wilson, the man I worked for in tech twice in my career. Mm-hmm. The customer would say, we're not going to do business with you. And Alan told me, he said, real selling starts when the customer says no. Mm-hmm. And, man, I typed that into the notes section. And then and biggest difference between people who do and people who don't is that people who do simply believe they can. I came up with that, typed it into the notes section. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, over a period of about 2 years, I went through about 4 or 5 phones, because I think the reason they called it a Palm Trio 300 was that the 300th time you opened the phone,
it broke.
The spring would break, it'd shoot across the room. That was the lifespan of the top. But anyway, I knew that my calendar and my email and my task were syncing to a Microsoft Outlook or whatever it was called then. I don't even remember. It may not have been called Outlook. But I didn't realize that the notes were syncing to my computer until 2004. There were kind of 5 little icons down there: calendar, notes, email, task, something else. I don't remember what the other one was. I clicked on the notes section, and Brent, over that period of 2.5 years, I'd taken almost 11 pages of one-liners.
Wow.
And I realized that this was kind of a shorthand primer in terms of how to think about all of the situations you encounter in life, in business, in committees, in organizations. And so I began to kind of organize them: sales excellence and business excellence, people excellence, spiritual excellence, and just kind of begin on the computer, begin to put them into various classifications. And what happened over the years is I became involved in community endeavors and trained companies and economic development in Greenville, which I helped lead for 11 years. I'm back doing it again.
Great town. Great town.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'd give these speeches, and I'd kind of have these smattered with these aha one-liners, and people just said, "Golly, you got to write a book." And I said, "I'm not writing a book. I hate self-promotion. I hate personal notoriety. I don't need any more enemies. And I probably got, there's all the friends I need." But I was on a board with a gentleman named Adam Whitty, who had started a ghostwriting business in Charleston called Advantage Books. Mm-hmm. And he heard me tell a few stories, and he said, "Toby, you got a bunch of stories, much one line. Why don't you let us write a book for you?" And I said, that was about, I don't know, maybe 2016 or 15. I said, I don't think so. And I said, I just don't have time. I'm trying to grow these companies. And, and it was expensive. It was pretty expensive. And I said, I don't think I want to do that. Well, in 2021, in September 2021, I ran into Adam at a marketing conference at Clemson University. And he said, "Toby, did you ever write that book I asked you to write?" And I said, "I never did." He said, "Well, listen, Forbes bought our company." And he said, I think you'd still be a great subject for us to work with." He said, "Why don't you come to Charleston and let us interview you?" And so I did. I went. It was a 5-hour interview, and they called me back that afternoon and said, "You got plenty of content for a book, but we think Forbes might be interested. Rather than publishing under our brand, the Advantage Books, maybe we publish it under Forbes, but they got to give you, put you through a pretty intense background check. And they got to look at the content." So they called me back the next day and said, "Hey, Forbes wants the book." And so they let me pick from 4 ghostwriters. The first one I picked, my first choice, by the time I said yes, he had already gotten another assignment, was not available. And the second one, he said, "All right, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to have 2 hours of interviews every week, every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It'll be a recorded Zoom call, video call, and I'll just ask you questions and you just start talking." And so from January to June of 2022, and we probably missed 6 or 8 times.
Sure.
So 42 or 44 1-hour sessions just to ask questions, and I answered them. And out of that came a book that is not a book like you read from cover to cover. It's 25 principles. You can read them in any order you want to. And you can digest it. They're 8 or 9 pages each, really short. You can pick it up and read it in 10 minutes, put it down, and you've got kind of a principle that I says has to meet this test. Everything in the book had to be universal, objective, timeless, and objective. Universal means it's not situational. You don't have to say, "Well, this worked with this person."
Yeah, anytime, anywhere, right.
Anytime, anywhere, any place. It's universal, but it'll always work. Timeless. Worked yesterday, worked today, it'll work tomorrow. And objective, it doesn't favor me because got a high school degree and you got a college degree, or disfavor me, or race, color, creed,
whatever,
experience, family name, levels the playing field. And I said the acid test for what goes in the book is it has to meet that criteria of being universal, timeless, and objective, and that's how the book came about.
That's just amazing. I'm going to want to talk to you more about this when we're not on here. Mr. Whitty has reached out to me 4 times now.
Has he really?
Yes, he has. I'm looking at it right now on LinkedIn. The last time was October 16th. Still looking to talk to you about a book. And I was just like, same with, now I am in no way trying to put myself in the same position as you are. But you said that name and I'm like, and I was like, but it was with Forbes. And then you said, and then Forbes bought him. And I'm like, holy cow, I think that's the guy. So I'm sitting here on my phone right now looking at it. And just interesting because I started the podcast, excuse me, because I didn't want to write a book, and I felt that I could share more ongoing, and it could be more, not diverse isn't the right name, but more agile as change happened instead of kind of a one and done type situation. But
That's right.
Now that you've got this, maybe we'll work on contacting me with Mr. Whitty on the side instead of just a neighbor. That's so fun. What a small world. Well, the book is outstanding, and it's one-liners, or I think you also refer to them as like mantras of excellence, if I remember right.
Correct.
And all things in life, whether they're another theme I kind of took was things in life, whether they're good or bad, there's an opportunity for development and learning there. And I think if people try to take that approach, nothing but positive things are going to come out of that. You don't make mistakes because, or when you're experienced, you don't make mistakes, but how you gain experience is by making a lot of damn mistakes.
Right.
And, you stub your toe on the coffee table so much, you finally move the coffee table so you don't stub it in the middle of the night when you're walking across your family room there. Same thing in life holds true. All of my stuff is stolen. All my good shtick, as I say on this show, is because I've learned or listened or heard or interacted with people. And that's how you kind of developed all that content too. And you took it a step further. I try to remember it all, and I need to certainly be writing down more than in the past. But what a neat story. And to know him personally, I didn't know where he was from, but down there in the Clemson area. And is he from Greenville?
No, he's in Charleston.
Charleston,
in Charleston,
okay.
South Carolina.
You said that.
Yeah, Adam is. So his office is right downtown Charleston. But he went to Clemson, so we were on the Spiro board for entrepreneurship.
That's just
and innovation
awesome.
at Clemson.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the questions you and I had talked about a little bit before is, what principles do you find important in leading people and driving results? And I said, let's spend some time on the book in here. What are your most important kind of attributes, do you think, in today's world that help leaders be as influential and as inspiring as possible? Or is there anything that just comes to mind that is the cream of all of the good stuff that you had out there on the book?
Well, I don't know the cream. Yeah, that's a great point. It takes a lot of aspects, I think, to be a good leader. And it's funny you said, you've stolen everything from everybody else, but so have I. There's actually, I don't know what's the prologue, it's something in the book, but I said, look, educators hate it when I say this, but you get extra points for plagiarism. All right, so they do, but everybody wants. Yeah, you get extra points for plagiarism because everybody wants to be creative and invent. And I said, look, that's silly. If it's already out there and it's workable, and you're not violating copyright or patent. I mean, look, adopt. Awesome. I use what I call the 4 A's model. Hey, I'm not going to try to invent something that's already. Trying to reinvent the wheel. I know that's a cliche. Yeah. Adopt, adapt, apply, and adjust. Adopt something that's already working to a reasonable degree in a similar situation that's not copyrighted or patented, and you can do it. Adapt it to your particular situation. Apply it and see how it works. Adjust it till it works better. And that's the fastest way to success. You don't have to invent everything. And it's so funny. I think there's three reasons why people don't do more than they do. One of them is they don't have the discipline or the self-motivation to do it. Number two is they're afraid of looking stupid. And I've cured that by saying, look, you need to learn to relish the state of ignorance. Mm-hmm. The state of ignorance is just not knowing. What a great opportunity to learn. But the biggest excuse in the history of the world today is, I don't know how. Well, I tell everybody, look, dude, in the age of Google and YouTube,
how do you not?
Of everything, yeah, just look it up. Somebody's already done it.
Right. There's a video, and you can go along. You can step along with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I don't know how today. Maybe the most lame excuse, kind of in the history of the world, But I'll say this: if you get right down to kind of the two things that I think make great leaders, kind of two principles, really kind of short things. One of them is a chapter in the book, one of them is just kind of a theme throughout the book. Well, humility is more important than visibility. It's not about me. Mm-hmm. The difference between, and this is put forth in the book, and I have the last 3 copies I think ever been printed, called Fail Safe Leadership by Linda Martin in Dr. David Munster, and it says, look, a great performer, a great producer, a great individual contributor sets goals and achieves results. Now, it's a given. You got to do it the right way. You got to do it legally, morally, and ethically, and you got to do it in a way that reflects and reinforces the culture and values of the organization you represent. That's a given. So the end does not justify the means. The means has to be the right way. So let's say that's the baseline. So a great performer, great contributor, great producer sets goals and achieves results. The difference between a great performer and a great leader is just two words. A great leader sets goals and achieves results through others. It's that simple. So my legacy of leadership, especially at this age and stage in my life, is not going to be anything else that I do or achieve or accomplish. But it's going to be what the people around me become, do, achieve, or accomplish as a result of the relationship that we have with each other. And the two principles, I think, that maybe stand out more than anything else. Number one is humility is more important than visibility. It's not about
That's a
me.
great
it's
saying.
about you.
I've already written it down.
Humility is more important than visibility.
Yep.
If the sun's a great big ball of fire, gives off plenty of light, let other people stand in the brightest spot sometimes.
Agreed.
All right?
Agreed.
That's how you encourage them, mobilize, motivate.
Yep.
So that's one. But here's the other one.
Be a shadow, don't cast one. Yep.
Be a shadow, don't cast one. That's a great point. And the second one is clarity trumps cool every day of the week. I'm in the agency business. It's all about being hip and cool and all that. But at the end of the day, clarity trumps cool every day of the week. What is it we're trying to achieve? What do I expect of you? What are the goals? What are the metrics? What does success look like? And as I tell people all the time, look, I'm not paying you to do the job. I'm paying you to get the job done. That's there's a difference. John Wooden, who in my book was the greatest athletic coach of all time. Yep. He won 10 national championships.
His records he can stand on that pretty strongly. There's no doubt.
He can. And one of his, and I keep two cards in my wallet. One of his is called Timeless Wisdom. It's from him, and I saw him speak when he was 96 years of age, and one of the most impressive, and he was on a walker, and one of the most impressive individuals I've ever seen. But he had a saying that stays pasted on my office wall. It says, don't ever, activity without achievement is worthless, or don't ever confuse activity with achievement. And so, we can all say, I did the right things. I called this, but it's not about doing the right things. Yes, you got to do the right things, but at the end of the day, leaders achieve results. It's not about how great a personality they have or their charisma, or people love to hear them give a speech. It's can they marshal the resources around them, motivate them, and mobilize them in a way that you achieve the desired results in the right way. So
create the followership.
Humility is more important than visibility, and clarity trumps cool every day of the week. That's my two big ones.
I love it. The clarity thing really resonated with me when you said that, and how I'm going to take it down just a road for your comments on it. In today's world, I say something about communication, and I've said it a number of different ways, so it won't be exactly how I've said it on a couple other shows, but 4,500 years ago, hieroglyphics were how we communicated. You go and you look at the pyramids and things, and it was a picture of an eagle, and it was a picture of the sun, and it was a picture of the pyramid, and that people got the stories out of that. We developed language. The Greeks helped develop math. Latin was created and spread across the globe as the globe was perceived at that point. None of the New World at this point. Communication developed and everything happened, and then suddenly that damn smartphone we talked about earlier has got us going back to hieroglyphics, because you send smiley faces and happy faces and all this junk instead of truly communicating. And where I'm going with that is towards your clarity statement, where my kids, I have 2 daughters, and they want to text everybody everything. And I continuously try to say to them that there is not enough context or clarity in that means of communication, because somebody's always upset because what they think somebody meant. They're always upset because of what they think somebody said about them or is saying to them.
Correct.
They're reading between the lines when there aren't enough lines there to tell the story. Context is king, and the situation you're in is completely different when you develop it. It's like the old monkeys on the tree limb, right? The first monkey hears a story, and as it passes down, by the time it gets to the leaves on the end of the limb, the story has no comparison to what was really stated at the trunk of the tree. And it's just, it's interesting that you bring up, and I'm really glad you brought up that clarity, and humility is a huge thing too, right? It is, it's not so much to be the biggest talker in the room. My dad used to say, you're given 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion, and life's going to treat you pretty well. If you're listening, you're learning. If you're speaking, you're casting shadows. So great stuff.
And Brent, you and I had talked about some of this, and you don't know this, but probably the most impactful thing I ever composed in my life was when I began to realize in 2012, 13, and 14, everybody started to overuse digital communication, text and email. I don't even know maybe it's chat back then. I don't know. But I wrote an article, and I just wrote it for myself, and it was called Digital Communication and the Demise of Genuine Dialogue.
Oh, boy.
And
nail on the head.
And I gave it. It is. I gave it to a few friends, and the next thing I knew, my phone rang, and it was a local business journal in the Upstate called the Upstate Business Journal. Said, "Look, we've heard about this article. We've got it." Said it's too long. Can you condense this to 800 words because we're going to publish it? And I wrote it, and that was now 9 years ago. It got published in the Upstate Business Journal, which is owned by some really good friends of mine. 2014. But I tell you, I go back and I look at that, and it may be more relevant today than it is then.
I think it's going to get more and more relevant because we keep distancing ourselves from, look at our government as an example. We used to have this wonderful thing called discourse. Now everybody picks a side or picks their bubble and refuses to engage with the other side because there's good ideas on both sides, right? But you don't know because each of you stand there and say, my ball, my game, or I'm going home. And nothing happens. It's sad. The state of this world today is you can boil a lot of it down to the inability to appropriately communicate and understand, holding humility, etc. So, man, I'd love to read the article. If you've got my email, send it up to me. I'd love to take that in. Please do. Please do.
Well, compromise has become a bad word.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, email and text or any form of non-real-time communication is good for things you need and good for things but it's not good for things being negotiated.
Agreed.
And people hide behind that because they can put up this false specter of power and
passive-aggressive is run amok. Yeah,
it's just gross. And so what I do, I tell everybody, if we have any sort of text or email thread that goes more than 2 deep, you've said more than 2 things, or I've said more than 2 things, you better as well start looking at your mobile phone because it's going to ring in the next 10 seconds.
That's right. Pick up the phone.
Because I'm through. I'm not going to do that. We're going to work this out in real time. We're going to have the intentionality of finding common ground where both of us can live. At least give it a best shot at doing that. So I just see so many people today, they don't want to face any sort of conflict. They don't want to have to work through the tough negotiation sometimes to find something that works. And there's an old saying, the test of a truly great negotiation is that neither party gets exactly what they want.
That's right. Neither one's satisfied. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and in today, especially in today's political environment, the word compromise has become a taboo word.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There are things about in our lives that should be non-negotiable, things we believe about faith, family, and friends, but the rest of it, it's all up for negotiation.
That's right. And somewhere in the middle, this far right, far left, both sides just aggravate the living daylights out of me because in the middle third is where the country, 95% is agreed upon there. And this thing about confrontation that you brought up, people want to avoid it at all costs, especially the younger people today, because they feel that everyone is watching every move they make. When I say 2 things. One is the world is full of too much me and not enough we. And
a great point.
People think that, these influencers, and I always act like I, just brought my lunch up in my mouth accidentally when I say social media influencers. What a joke. But everybody thinks that everybody's watching them all the time. Well, in today's world, everyone's so self-interested, they aren't paying attention to anybody else. Don't worry about what someone else thinks of you. And then around the confrontation piece, I've always said it's not confrontation, it's carefrontation. I care enough to engage to figure out what what we need to do to make whatever we're working on work, or fish or cut bait, right? We're either going to work it out or we're going to determine that we can't, and then we move on. But instead of this round and round and round junk, like you said, once 2 emails happen, and the reply to all, that's the other thing I'd say about technology. Microsoft Office, if they wanted to make the entire world much happier, is reply to all on email should be a minimum 8-step process. Are you sure you want to send to everybody again? Are you really, really sure you want to send everybody again? Are you really, really, really sure? Because it's just that loop. Yeah, just crazy, crazy stuff.
Well, we establish these positions that maybe at some point they're true, or maybe that we're passionate about them. But somebody shared with me a long time ago, and I don't even remember who it was, said the test of a truly intelligent individual is they can hold 2 diametrically opposed thoughts in their head at the same time and give equal consideration to each.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean you're compromising who you are or what you believe, but if it's true, it'll stand up to that test.
That's right.
And you got to be willing to question. Things change. Yes, there are things that are eternal and things that are fixed, and I got all that, and those things matter to me. But so many times I worked for a man named Hunter Park, and he said, Toby, it's not the things you're wrong about that are going to bring you down. It's the things that you used to be right about, but something's changed, and you're wrong about it now, but you hadn't taken the time
to realize
to research it and change your perspective and change your position. And he's right. And you don't want to be wishy-washy, but today things change quickly, and you better have the mental fortitude every day for the things that you're doing in business and in life. Is this still work? Is it still relevant? Is it still optimized? Is this going to create the desired results? And you just find you got to be willing to adjust.
Great points. Great points. What would you tell, with all your life experience and all the relationships that you have, if you were to go back and that kid making fishing rods before he figured out how to monetize, what would you tell your younger self that you wish you would have known then? Is there anything that kind of resonates or comes to mind on a question like that?
Yeah. And it's not what I knew. It's what I knew and didn't act on. The reason America's gotten behind on the world stage in a lot of ways, technology sometimes being one of them, is it's not that we don't have great plans and great ideas. We don't execute. We don't do.
We can't operationalize. Yeah.
Yeah. We just don't do what we know we're supposed to do. And I'm fortunate, Brent. I was blessed with you can tell by the accent. Even though I've lived all over the world, I tell people, look, don't mistake this accent. I've never lived in the country. I was born in East Tennessee. I grew up in Memphis. I've helped run businesses in Europe, worked in Asia, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas.
You are a well-rounded individual. There is no doubt. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've been
very fortunate. Yep.
Kind of a lot of places, but you just got to do what you know you ought to do. And when I was younger, I think I was lazy. I was smart. I was forcing that. School was easy to me. I think I made my first B maybe in the 8th grade because I was goofing off and didn't care. And that kind of laziness carried on into college. I made a 3.7 my first semester, and I ended up not graduating with honors just because I spent all my time playing basketball and skipping class. And that carried over into my first couple of jobs. I made money. I did well. I was a salesperson, but I sold on strength of personality and not on strength of process. And so I just didn't do my best. I didn't understand the value of, I think, the classic definition of freedom is being able to do anything we want to do. That's freedom. I'm free. My parents not watching me. They're gone for the weekend. I can do anything I want to do. But I learned that real freedom is having the power to do what you know you ought to do without somebody else making you.
Yep.
And if I had to tell I wish I had learned when I went to IBM, that was the inflection point in my life and my career.
That's when it started turning on.
Stupid.
Yep.
Yeah. You're in a very high profile business. You're running a key account territory. The standard is the utmost in professionalism. You didn't want to look stupid.
Big Blue days. Yeah.
Big Blue. Big Blue. That's it. And I wish that I had understood that I could have gotten there a lot quicker in my life, personally and professionally, if I just made good use of what I'd been blessed with rather than waking up when I was 24, 25. And that's probably the biggest regret I've got, not taking full advantage of the educational opportunities I had and even some earlier business opportunities that I probably could have just blown the top off of. But I just coasted by and didn't work nearly as hard as I needed to. And nobody else knew it really, but I knew it.
Yeah, that's wisdom. You have just you have sprinkled this conversation with a lot of wisdom there, and it takes, you have to acquire it, right? Well, going into a marketing statement here, attribution, right? You guys love attribution because you want to know what you're trying to talk people into spending money on, what they can attribute it to, and you could attribute greater successes to diving in sooner and deeper, and your attribution would have, your successes would be higher, and you can always attribute it to it when you were doing the right things, right? Concentrating on the right things. As my dad used to say, there's lots of people that are raring to go, but few that can go for raring. And
wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that kind of ties that back in, right? Is you didn't know how good you had it, how lucky you had it. A big thing on education, I was like you. I didn't carry a 3.7 the first semester. I carried a 1.7 the first semester because I joined the fraternity and moved in as a pledge. Woo! That was a very good social development semester.
Oh yeah,
my social skills developed very, very well. And then I had suddenly, World War II father, and that slip comes home after spending the money at the University of Iowa. That was not a fun Christmas break. And you kind of got things back on track pretty quickly, and I ended up doing very, very well. But it's we all are human, and we all would like to be able to take an easier road. But man, the bumpy roads lead to the best views. I'm just telling you, it really.
That's pretty good.
It just, man, life is not
easy. Well, you said something. You used a word that's in rare supply these days, Brent. I'll tell you, I don't know. Again, you and I really don't have a script, but you use the word wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I think we're taught from a very early age about right from wrong. And so it becomes a focal point, even in the latter part of our life. Man, we got to make this decision of right from wrong. But I'm going to tell you something that I learned. You can teach an animal right from wrong. You can teach a dog not to use the bathroom in the house or on the carpet. Mm-hmm. But you can only teach a human wise from unwise. That's a different level of discernment, a different level of judgment. And something may not be wrong, but it may not be wise. And I've said you can do the right thing in the wrong way or at the wrong time, and it's worse than doing nothing at all. Yeah. And for me, I just say, I think other than being a person of faith, when you leave this world, the greatest compliment you could ever receive besides your faith is somebody saying that was a wise person, because good judgment and wisdom is in rare supply these days, and that is at the core of authentic and genuine leadership. And we need more people that really push themselves to that next level of behavior and decision making that demonstrates wisdom and good judgment.
That's great. I'll tell you what, very wise commentary. to use it yet again. Excuse me. Oh, what a great conversation. I want to ask you one more question here. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's on the horizon?
Man, I'm telling you, your timing today is impeccable. It might even make me a little emotional. I just had somebody come in here. I won't get into all the details, but I've kind of worked out the last part of my contract here in career, so I've got some flexibility. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate for 11 years. I co-chaired with the owner of the minor league baseball team here, probably my best friend, Craig Brown, the Chamber of Commerce's Upstate Economic Development Initiative called Accelerate. Mm-hmm. And then for 4 years, I was the chair of the advisory council for the Minority Business Accelerator in Greenville. There were only 6 of them in the country at the time. And then for 3 years, I was the instructor. And I always had the same goal. And I said, look, my objective is to extend and improve quality of life and a greater level of economic prosperity to a broader expanse of the upstate's population.
That's awesome.
And I think it just comes back to, it's not about me, is that I've learned, that you got to help without being a giveaway artist, but you got to equip people. You got to equip people to be
empower them,
more successful, more significant, the ability to contribute more to the community economically and commercially and civically and culturally and socially. And you don't just give things away. You teach and you equip and you hold people accountable. And I've kind of used, a few words about this. You want what we to do to be, you show some initiative in what we're doing. We want to do things in a coordinated fashion. We want to hold each other mutually accountable. So I'm going to spend the last part of my time. There's some businesses in Greenville that people that are my age, and they've come to me and they said, look, I think, we've just put a succession plan in place at Cargo. I think that's going to work.
Excellent.
It allows me to, and this is in the book, I said, I want to build such a team that performs so well that I can work myself in the position of irrelevance and obscurity and fade into the background gracefully.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, and that's true. And because I don't need to, again, humility is more important than visibility, but there are other businesses that said, how do you do that, Toby? How do you go from being historically what maybe I've been an autocratic leader or an iconic leader, and how do we move into this generation's leadership model, a more distributed and collaborative leadership model that still stops short of being democratic? So I'm gonna help some companies there, and secondarily, I'm gonna help Greenville's come back to me and said, hey, would you be willing to help bring all the economic development entities in the upstate together in a more integrated, coordinated,
cohesive manner? Yeah.
Cohesive manner. So we've got one plan. Everybody does what they does best, the highest and best use of their talents. But let's do this in a coordinated, systematic fashion. And just, I think, am I engaged in things that are helping make people's lives better now on this side and eternally as well. And as long as it's got that kind of balance to it, then I'll be selective about what I'm doing. I want to stay in my swim lane. I don't want to do things that I'm not equipped to do or don't have the time or fortitude to do. But I've said my signature question, and again, this is in the book, is what can I do to help you? And people say, well, what if you ask that question and you don't have the time? I said, then you shouldn't have asked the question, because if you ask that question, what can I do to help you? And they answer you, and you have the talent. Forget time. Time is not a factor. The resources, the expertise, the experience, or the access to those resources to do it. Guess what? You ask the question, you got to do it. So I think those things that meet that test of truly, Jackie Robinson's epitaph says, life is only important to the extent it impacts others' lives. And that doesn't mean you're completely altruistic or philanthropic or pious or false.
I get you.
Just make sure that it's just not all about you. Just make sure you're pulling people along with you.
It's so, you look at all the greats. I mean, it's that way. It is just really, really that way. They always have. So I had a young lady that leads a philanthropic endeavor here in Des Moines at a big hospital network, and they talk about the 3 T's, and you kind of mentioned them in another number of ways, but how you can help others is through time, talent, and treasure. A lot of people lean into philanthropic endeavors thinking they have to bring their checkbook. You don't have to bring your checkbook. You can bring your playbook. You can bring your talents and your time to help others and lean in on it. And I try to talk about the village a lot. What this country needs right now is people that care about each other. And how can I help you? And it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, Toby. And I look forward to hopefully keeping our relationship going away from this, because I think there's a lot I can certainly learn from you. And you've been inspiring to me today, inspiring to the audience. Again, everybody, the book is called The Winding Road to Excellence. And it is an excellent book. It's a quick read. It's an easy read. And the content is very impactful. And it is the little statements in life that boil big ideas down to just quick hitters. I'm not a very smart guy. I'm okay. But if you can make it simple for me and repeatable and those types of things, it's led to a lot of my success in life too. And just such a blessing to have you on, Toby. Again, CEO of the Cargo Agency, author, motivational speaker, and highly recommended by myself and many others. Appreciate you joining the show today. What a blessing.
Brent, thank you. You've been a very gracious host, and I'm certain we'll maintain this relationship we've initiated, and let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.